Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Positive Girl podcast with me, Sabrina. This is the show that's going to help you become your best self. And today we're talking about what scares you most, facing our fears. But before we jump in, as always, I want to invite you to come say hi to me on Instagram. I am at Sabrina Joy Perozzo. I would love to chat with you in the DMs and answer any of your questions, comments, concerns, prayer requests, feedback, topic suggestions. Or we can just chit-chat in the comments either way, or not in the comments, in the DMs. And I would love to just get to know you. You're welcome to also send me an email if you prefer that to realpositivegirlpodcast@gmail.com. That information is available for you down in the show notes below. Also, if you go to my website, sabrinajoy.com, there's a place for you to sign up for the newsletter that's going to come out at the end of this month, March 2022, if you're listening to this in the future. And also, there is a link for you to get my free guide for 50 questions to become more self-aware. Soon in the future, I will be breaking that down into probably like 5 little mini guides, so it's not so overwhelming. But if you do want to get it, all you have to do is click the link, pop your email in, and then you can go ahead and get those questions. So anyway, again, check all that stuff out in the show notes below, but let's go ahead and get to this episode, which again is what scares you most, facing our fears. If I were to ask myself what scares me most personally, it would be the uncertainty of the future. And it has always been that since I've been a little girl. And a lot of it had to do with not knowing what was going to happen because a lot of scary, bad things happened. And it instilled this fear in me. But also, I'm a planner. I am a planner. And I'm sure a lot of that was developed in childhood, wanting to be a planner, feeling more safe when I'm a planner. And I like to have an idea of what's going to happen or just plan it myself, right? I'm just okay, let me just throw this together just so we have an outline, an idea of what is going down. It's pretty simple for me, right? But what feels simple to me of just, needing a plan, even a loose plan or planning it myself is actually difficult in a world where you never know what's going to happen. I feel like day to day, we can kind of have an idea of what we think is going to happen, what is supposed to happen. But if we experience enough uncertainty in our life, then it becomes scarier and scarier. And it creates this fear of crap, I don't know what's going to happen. And that makes me very scared. And so that's the one that I deal with the most. I do urge you to, even if you want to right now, pause and ask yourself, what scares you the most? If you want to make a quick list, maybe your top 5 things. It can be as specific as you want. Today we are going to talk more deeply about things that scare us, but not things, they're going to be more generalized, not like the gas prices rising or cyber attacks or anything like that, because, those things are scary, but these are the ones that I'm going to talk about later are just more generalized because they affect our lives as a whole. You know what I mean? But in general, I have a problem with fear. And it feels like I pick up a new fear every single week because I'm trying harder to challenge myself and step out of my comfort zone, which is super duper important. I actually, within the last probably 10 episodes, I talked about stepping outside of our comfort zone and how important it is. And I'm sure you understand the fact that despite how important something is for you to do it, it doesn't make it that any easier, right? But yeah, so I just feel like I'm just constantly picking up things to be afraid of because I'm trying to do those things to push myself to grow, which is a good thing. We're supposed to be out there pushing boundaries, making ourselves better by engaging in new experiences and going through favorites, mistakes and failures. I say favorites because it's something that I talk about often. Things that I do talk about with you on the regular, but talking about and teaching about and coaching you all through this doesn't make it any easier to deal with for myself, despite the fact that I feel like I'm sometimes preaching to the choir and just telling myself all these things that I also need to be reminded of. So just so you know, I am right there with you. It doesn't make it any easier. And, me helping you through all of these things isn't going to make the process any easier for you either. But it does give you tips on how to best manage it and make it to the other side, which is super important. But it's just tough because we just get afraid of what's going to happen and all of these other things that kind of just like can dominate our lives if we allow them to. So I try to approach most of my fears by asking myself, what's the worst that could happen? And I'm sure that many of you have also asked yourself the same question. And it's definitely a question that I have. It's clutch. It's there for me in those times where I'm like, crap, I am just feeling those feels of fear. It's just overtaking me, right? And I think that a lot of us understand. If you don't, it's important to know like how you feel as fear. Can you tell that I'm struggling? Feel fear. It's important for you to understand like what you are feeling as fear is coming on you, right? And I don't know if I've done an episode in regards to triggers of fear or like feelings, not triggers, symptoms, or how you know that fear is coming on you. I believe that I have. And if I haven't, I will do that soon. But it's important for you to kind of like be aware of your body and like so you can notice like, okay, I'm about to go through these feelings of feeling fearful, and I need to be aware so that I can like really tap into coping mechanisms that can help me calm down, which this is one of those things for me. What's the worst that could happen? Like seriously asking myself that question in all honesty. And just to be totally honest with you, as I am always, this exercise doesn't always help because I start to believe the worst case scenarios I come up with and really just scare myself even more because I'm like, well, what if I could do this? And what if this does happen? And it's likely to, the probability is over 50%, right? I'm literally doing probability percents in my mind. But when it does work, it can boost my confidence a bit and shave the fear down a little bit, enough for it to be manageable and for me to not totally lose it, just like totally lose it and just be out of control in my mind and totally anxious and overwhelmed and not even understanding what I should be doing in the moment. And, I have found that understanding the circumstance or the experience I have to go through a bit more does help to reduce my fear as well. So that would be like if you were super fearful of trying out for like a Broadway show, I know, super random, that you would investigate like how that process goes. You would talk to someone that's done it a few times. You would get really familiar with all the stages that are involved. So that you don't feel like there are too many surprises along the way. If you have a fear of interviewing for a job, again, you would learn as much as you could about that company that you are applying for. You would maybe see if you could talk to people that have worked for it previously or do work for it currently, and you would talk to someone or do some research on how to best interview and be confident in all of those things, right? If you take some time to really invest in understanding what the fear is that you have, like the specific fear, can really help you like reduce it and not be so succumb to the like the output of your fear of being scared of like going into fight or flight mode, of running away, of shutting down, going into panic, anxiety, and all these other things that could happen. Another example that I've seen, if you have to give a presentation and you do have a fear of public speaking, is really like knowing the topic that you have to speak about inside and out as well as you can, memorizing a speech that you have written in regards to that, so that you feel very comfortable with what you're saying. Maybe have notes if you have to answer questions afterwards, and just really, and then maybe even learning like public speaking techniques for you to be more comfortable and calm in the moment. So I do think that like asking yourself what's the worst that could happen, understanding your fear and the experience you have to go through a little bit more will help to reduce the fear. And in addition to that, I thought it would be very interesting to, really talk more, not deeply, I would say, I don't think that's the word, more in depth about like what scares us in general. And so today I want to answer the question of what scares you most. In addition to me just telling you off the top, for me personally, it's uncertainty. But I want to answer that question of what scares you most with 7 fears that hold us back the most in life and what we can do to face those fears. So, as always, as always, if you're not new here, I think you know what's about to come out of my mouth. This is not an extensive list or exhaustive. This is not all of the fears that hold us back most in life. If you do not think that any of these fears apply to you, but you are certain that some fears are holding you back in life, I implore you to go to Google and look them up and do some research of your own. Speak to like a professional healthcare person, talk to a therapist, and just kind of like seek out, answers that maybe I'm not able to provide you here, because this is supposed to be helpful advice and tips and knowledge and things like that. But again, it's not going to cover every single base. So again, today we are going to answer the question of what scares you most, with 7 fears that hold us back the most in life, and just kind of like help you talk about those fears and how we can face them. Now, I'm not saying, before we jump into this list, I want to be very clear with you. I'm not telling you how to overcome the fear. I'm telling you how to face it. Facing and overcoming are not the same things. You can face a fear and still continue to have that fear, but you have the courage and the confidence to continue to go toe to toe with it. And I don't feel like that's overcoming it, because if you're continuing to have like lingering feelings of that fear, you have not overcome it. It's still something that you are dealing with, So I just want you to understand that these are not tips to just magically overcome something. No, I'm going to help you deal with it and push through so you can get to the other side of it. Okay. So number 1 is uncertainty. Of course, because that is the one that's number 1 for me. And I know that it's number 1 for so many people, especially people that deal with anxiety, because being uncertain and not understanding like what's going to happen in the near future, in the far future, 5 minutes from now, how things are going to turn out despite how much work and effort that you've put into something. And anxiety is crippling, right? It is. It can just, for me, anxiety, if it gets bad enough that I actually go have an anxiety attack, or even if I, full-fledged panic attack, I will freeze. And there's been days where I would just sit on the couch for hours, not watching anything, not listening to anything, not eating, just sitting there, because I am literally just in shock. I am just in a freeze, because the anxiety of whatever is happening is so crippling. And sometimes it could be the uncertainty of what is going to happen or what should happen, but maybe you're afraid it's not going to happen. So, but it's important to remember, and I remind myself of this all the time. Literally told myself this 4 nights ago. I told my therapist that I remind myself of this all the time, and he agreed, and it's so helpful, and I hope it's helpful to you, is that worrying about the future will change nothing or manifest anything good. And sometimes when I'm real high anxiety, it's hard for me. I have to remind myself that over and over again, that this continued state of worry is not going to change whatever the outcome is or what will happen and how it will all turn out. It's not. Me worrying about it, me really going over and over again, thinking about everything that I did to contribute to whatever it was, or me, anything having to do with it. And then, or doing what I can right now and trying to figure out what I can do in the future, but maybe there's no way to know right now. Again, worrying about the future will change nothing, and it will manifest nothing good. It won't really manifest anything, because all you're doing is worrying. All you're doing is obsessing over what you hope will happen and working yourself up until you discover what is actually going to happen. Do you know what I mean? So uncertainty, it's an uncomfortable thing. And another thing I have to do, besides reminding myself that worrying really doesn't amount to anything, is that so many good things have happened in my life so far, and there is no reason for me to believe that it's all about to stop in a moment's notice. And even if it does, even if you find out really bad news about something, I also try to be well, this wasn't the positive thing that I expected to happen, but bad things have happened to me in the past, and I have still been able to bounce back to good things, to positive things, to things that are manageable for me. And it's really a mindset game. Like with all of these, obviously it is. But with uncertainty, you just have to continue to remind yourself that it's going to be okay. And there's literally nothing you can do because you have probably done everything you can do until you find out and like move on in like the time space continuum of like life, of progressing to the next day to find out if what you hoped happened did, or nothing happened, or something bad happened. But knowing and believing you're fully equipped to handle whatever is thrown at you, because you have in the past and you will continue to do so in the future. Number 2, fear of failure. I talk all the time about failure and mistakes, right? All the time. So this won't be very long. But failure is one of the best lessons. And when I fail at something, sometimes I do have a fear of failure. I'm really like, man, I don't want to fail. But I do remind myself, I'm not perfect. No one is. And despite how successful and amazing someone is and how far they've gotten in life, they have failed at some point. Now, maybe those failures are not publicized. Okay, that's fine. I hope that in anything that I create or do or grow or whatever, I will publicize my mistakes and failures, because it's important to have role models in your life that are divulging those things. They shouldn't be secrets and they shouldn't be shameful. Now, I understand that some failures or mistakes that are super, super personal, maybe those don't need to be out in the world. It just depends on your comfortability level, but I'd say in general, right? And so I want to be super open about that, because again, role models, people you can like look up to and know that, oh, it's okay to do that, as opposed to creating shame and taboo around making mistakes and failures, especially if you are trying to do better each time that you do it again. So it's important to know that failures are not bad, and we can fear them because we want to be perfect. And we might feel like we have that expectation placed on us, but from other people. And whether we do or don't, we still need to understand that we are not perfect, and we need to allow ourselves to fail so that we can get better. How will we get correction in any way if it doesn't come in the way of failure? Maybe we'll get criticism, but I feel like sometimes criticism doesn't really cause any change to happen, because it feels like it's just advice and not necessarily like distinct telling you like something needs to change. They're like, you should change this, but you don't have to. With mistakes and failures, it's very clear, like, crap, I got to make a change. Something has to change. Like, it just can't be like this forever. So fearing failure and change will keep you very stagnant in life, and you won't grow, and you might even fall behind in things that you are aspiring to do or be, because you're not allowing yourself to fail and become stronger and better and continue to do that over and over again until you come to a point where, I don't know, you've made it, and then you start all over again. So, fear of failure, best lessons learned in fears and failures. Best lessons learned in failures and mistakes, and no one's perfect. Just remember that. No one's perfect, and it's okay, and everyone's made mistakes, especially the most successful people. Number 3, rejection. Fear of rejection. I dealt with this for years, a long time, because I had already been rejected so much, like in my family life, that being rejected by anyone else was just going to be too much over the top for me, But I tend to think of rejection differently now. A lot of people talk about how rejection is just really like redirection, which is true. I know it's cliche, but like I say, a lot of cliche things are true. But it's like a redirection. So if someone's saying no to you, then yeah, you might be hurt. Totally fine. Honor those emotions. You might be hurt, upset, angry, dissatisfied, whatever you're feeling. But you have to understand that if you continue to just wallow in those feelings and sit in that pit of despair that you are creating for yourself, how will you do something else? Right? How will you make a change? How will you show them, not that you should, not that this should be your focus, but how will you show them that you can and you will and you are able to, right? If you just wallow in those feelings. So rejection is nice because it gives you an end, a final answer. So if you are going to interview for a job, which this has definitely happened to me, where I will interview for a job and I will get rejected, right? I did not get hired. And that's fine. It's sad because you're like, well, what was it about me? What didn't I do? What did I miss? What did I forget? And we obsess over those things when really, you can take a little bit of time to consider that, but you have to limit it. You have to be like, okay, well, let me just consider for a day or two what I might have missed. Maybe I can even email them and ask for feedback, but there needs to be an ending to that, just like they have given you an ending. Like you no longer need to worry about this thing because it's over. So if someone rejects you, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a friendship, whether it's for a job, or maybe, I don't know, some other partnership with someone else, right? And they say no, then it's like, okay, well, at least I have a firm answer. At least it's not uncertain. At least it's very certain. And it provides direction and it also gives you a reason to challenge yourself even more because you either need to make a drastic change or a mini change, or you need to instill some more people in your life that can help you and help you figure out what you need to do to become better, to become your best self, right? We should never shy away from asking people for help. I know I suck at this. I'm working on it, but I do want to remind you guys that you need to do it too. Ask for more help. Get that support that you need to, again, continue being your best self and realize that rejection's nice. Rejection gives you a final answer that you need to move in a new direction, a better direction, usually. Number 4, being judged by others. Oh man, I still struggle with this one. I definitely would say it's probably number 2 behind the fear of uncertainty for me. But being judged by others, it's becoming easier for me to kind of let that go, just for the simple fact that we're going to be judged no matter what, right? People are always, always, always going to judge you. Do you know why? It's because no matter what, they will judge you because it gives them a break from judging themselves, right? Or dealing with the judgment that they get from other people. There's always going to be someone judging you because there's always going to be someone trying to get out of dealing with their own feelings and emotions. There's always going to be people that have an opinion on what you do and what you say because they see the world in black and white with no gray. They think that one way is right and one way is wrong. They lack the ability to have perspective and understanding about how people are different. And that's on them. And it's not on you to necessarily educate them. It's just for you to realize that they're going to have their opinion and they're not your best friend or your partner or your mentor or anything. And so you really don't have any obligation to listen to what they're saying. You can be respectful and be like, okay, thanks for letting me know that, and then move right along. It can be hurtful because we can take when people give us their opinion about us, and generally negatively, and judge us as us doing something wrong or us being inadequate, not enough, and fall into also comparison because, well, clearly we're not like this other person who doesn't seem to get any judgment, and I'm getting all the judgment and I'm trying to do what they're doing. It may be the reason why you're getting judged so much is because you are in the comparison trap and you're spending so much time comparing yourself to someone else and being like them when you really should just be like yourself. And yeah, you might garner even more judgment, but at least it'll be based on you being authentic and not being a copycat. Don't worry, that rant was for me too. It's important for us to realize that we're going to be judged no matter what. There's always going to be people out there judging. There's always going to be people out there with like a negative mindset, and that's what they do, and it makes them feel better to nitpick other people because people nitpick them. And we have to get more comfortable with it. Honestly, it's something that I'm literally telling myself, I don't need to be upset about this. I don't need to give them my energy, because when you give them your energy, they will soak it up and spit it back at you in more judgment. So just join me in being unbothered about it, being like, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Sometimes feedback and judgment can be helpful, if it's important to you on how you come across the people. If that's important, whatever you're doing, sure. But I'd say 85% of the time, it's not really going to matter. And that we should just smile and move on. I know that wasn't like a definitive piece of advice, but it has to be something that we try to sidestep. We have to just understand that people are doing it out of their own pain, not necessarily just wanting you to have pain. Number 5, missing out. The fear of missing out, FOMO. I actually did an episode talking all about FOMO because it's a big deal. And I don't think people realize how big of a deal it is and how much time we are wasting in our lives dealing with FOMO. FOMO is a time waster, a time sucker. And if you feel like you are constantly dealing with the fear of missing out, so you feel like you constantly have to be on social media so you know what everyone's doing, if you feel like you have to go to every party and function because you don't want to be left out, if you feel like you need to be in on all the gossip and what everyone's going through, and if you don't get invited to something, you feel absolutely heartbroken, it's important to look into why you're feeling this way. Why do you feel like you're missing out? I definitely struggled with that, especially with social media, wanting to be caught up on what everyone's doing, even though I don't know any of these people online, and seeing people that I knew online talk about events that they are going to or did go to that I was not invited to for whatever reason. And it can hurt because it's like, wow, why wasn't I included? Why didn't they care to invite me? What did I do? And then really asking yourself, well, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel left out? Why do I feel like I'm missing out on these things? And is it because you feel inadequate? You feel like you're not doing enough to be a part of this? Do you feel like you're overly trying and it's still not working, which just means you don't need these people? Because if you're doing all of that, if you feel like you're already doing too much and you're not getting enough, it's time to just let it go. Maybe you feel jealous. And jealousy should really just be an opportunity for you to see the desires of your heart and what you want, and really figure out if you want them because you truly desire them, or you want them because it awards you something. It awards you more attention or more love and affection or more respect, right? More comfort. Jealousy is a very interesting thing. I think that it really is telling when we are feeling feelings of jealousy. I was feeling them this morning. I made a little TikTok about it because it's important for us to talk about these things when we have these feelings. Even if you would consider jealousy a nasty thing, it's important to really understand why. Why are we feeling this way? And to really analyze our feelings, i.e. self-awareness. But anyway, FOMO. It's a time waster because you could be doing something else with that desire and with that sadness of not being invited to the thing or not being able to go to the thing and hearing about the thing afterwards, regardless of being invited or not. Just really enjoy your present life right now. It's fun to be online and it's fun to be invited to things and be part of the group, but it's also fun to just do what you want to do. It's also fun to have like downtime and not socialize with people all the time, unless you're an extrovert, then I don't really know that life. um, you're not really, you think you're missing out on things that you feel like you need to be a part of, but sometimes you're missing out on, things that are just going to naturally come about and things that you need, like rest or, you know, randomly meeting a neighbor and becoming friends or stumbling across like a really good book or, I don't know, like just having a nice drive alone as opposed to going to the party. Or maybe meeting someone on your way to the party and then ditching the party because you know that spending time with them is going to be way more interesting than actually going to the party. And you're only going to the party so you can say that you went to the party. Anyway, the fear of missing out, I feel like is driven by just wanting to say that you were a part of something when you can be a part of your own thing, and that's still just as important. Number 6, the fear of change. The fear of change is so important to talk about because a lot of us, this is the reason why we are not leaving our comfort zones, why we're getting super duper cozy and just wanting to like be there forever because change is scary. Change brings so many variables that we don't know how it's going to work out. It's like change and uncertainty are best buds, right? Because we have to do something different than we currently know. We don't know how it's going to make us feel yet because it's new. We don't know if it's going to be fun or not. And it might be hard. And at least everything we're doing right now, maybe it is still hard, but we already know what to expect. There are no surprises. But the important thing when you consider fear of change is that we all need growth. We all need growth. And if we don't change, we will not have any growth because we'll just be stagnant in our life, doing the same things over and over again. And how do we expect to go from where we are right now to achieving new goals and dreams and aspirations if there's no change involved? There obviously needs to be change. You can't just go from one level to the next with nothing different happening. Something will have to change. Even the smallest thing will have to change. So it's important for you to just consider, like, if you're afraid of things changing and having to get used to like a new life, just know that the growth is important and it's necessary. Seasons of life bring different things. And instead of fearing change, we can maybe be like more excited for the unknown possibilities and try to stay as positive as we can in hoping that there are always better things to come, not things that are going to like crash down around us, which I feel like a lot of us do in regards to fear of change. We feel like change is going to bring the worst when really it could just bring better or the best. Okay, number 7 and the last one that I want to share with you today is fear of success. I would say that if you looked up a list of like people's like top 10 fears and not talking about phobias and stuff like that, just like fears in general, like we're talking about today, this is not on that list, right? But I thought it was really important to talk about because fear of success is like one of the biggest reasons why I held off for so long in trying to achieve my dreams of becoming a coach, coaching mindsets, because and even now I still struggle with it a little bit, but it's like I fear that I will actually succeed. I will actually do well. And then what will I do? Will I have to continue to outdo myself every single time? Will I have to uphold some sort of like personality to people that, pay me to coach them online? Will I have to endure any sort of like extra judgment or eyes on me? What will people think if I actually succeed at this thing that maybe they didn't think I was going to succeed at? There are so many things. Fear of success, and fear of success can really cause a lot of procrastination. A lot, a ton. Like a ton. For sure. And lack of action, of course, because you're like, well, if I actually succeed at this, I'll actually, have to do work. I'll have to keep it up. I will actually have to make changes. I will actually have to go through mistakes and failures. There will actually be an uncertainty in my life, and I probably will miss out on things and be rejected. All of those things together, I feel like fear of success can encompass all of these things. A lot of them can encompass each other, of course. But if you have a fear of success, it can hold you back indefinitely until you decide to let it go and unclench a little bit and be like, let's just see where it goes, right? And also to not self-sabotage. I have a problem with that too. Maybe we should talk about self-sabotage as well at some point. But fear of success, it can really just cause you to self-sabotage and get in your own way and be like, no, I'm just going to wait, because you want to get it all figured out. You want it to be perfect so that if it does succeed, then you won't have any problem to keep it going. But even if you do succeed at something, there's still going to be bumps and stumbles along the way that you'll have to figure out. And that is what will make you stronger and better. And so much better at whatever you're doing. And you'll just continue to get better and better and better. Then you could teach others how to do the same thing, right? If you want. But yeah, it just leads to so much procrastination. I know for a fact. So don't hold yourself back just because you don't know what it feels to be successful, if that's true, and you feel like you don't have any people in your life that believe in you and think you can be successful. So you're just like, no, I can't do it because people say I can't do it. And, sometimes it'll make people want to do it even more and be like, well, I'll show you. But then other people's, it'll, pull them back, like me, and be like, okay, well, you said I couldn't do it. I don't want to do it. And if I do it, I don't know what's going to come of that because no one supports me, and maybe it'll all fall apart and be all for nothing. Right? So I don't know. It's just, it's a hard one. And it's one that, again, I'm still struggling with because I'm moving forward in my life, but it's also like, crap, when I get there, I don't know what I'm going to do to keep it going. And that's one of the scariest things, but I have to get there to figure out what to do next, right? So fear of success, definitely lack of action, but it's going to hold you back indefinitely from actually even trying and seeing where you're going to get to. But that's all 7, you guys. That's all 7 of fears that hold us back most in life, and how we can face those fears individually. And honestly, I believe if we tell ourselves that we just need to get through that fear today, and if we tell ourselves that same thing every single day, we will be able to take a step in the direction that we need to go and slowly face these fears head on and maybe not overcome them, but continue to push them back and move forward in our lives, which is the most important part. So, okay, well, I hope you really enjoyed this, and thank you so much for listening to the Real Positive Girl podcast, again with me, Sabrina. Please check the show notes below for where you can find my website, where you can find me on Instagram, where you can send an email, where you can get that free guide of 50 questions to become more self-aware, and actual notes for the show. So I can't wait to hear from you guys, but until next time, have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.